Jennifer's Tiny Kitchen Creations. And today I'm going to show you how to make a loaf of brioche bread in a tiny kitchen. So what you'll need for this recipe is going to be 2.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, 4 tablespoons of milk, 2 cups of flour, 3.5 tablespoons of sugar, 3 eggs divided, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 10.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter cut into cubes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be mixing our yeast in with our milk and a little bit of sugar. But I want to warm up the milk first, that way the yeast blooms. And I'll do it in about 10-second increments. It shouldn't take very long to warm it up. Alright, so our yeast, I'm just going to take a little bit of this sugar here, about a teaspoon. We're just going to mix them together and then let it sit for a couple minutes so that it can bloom. So while I'm waiting for the yeast to bloom, I'm actually going to be dividing the eggs. So I will need about 1/2 cup of eggs for the bread itself, and then the other half will be to do the egg wash on our bread. So I'm just going to mix them and then I'm going to measure them out. So I've got half here, 1/2 cup, and I'll be putting it in my stand mixer. So I want to mix in the flour next. Salt, the rest of our sugar, and we have bloomed, and now I'll add this in as well. Just give them a mix. The first thing that we're doing is we're getting all of this mixed together, and then we're going to be kneading this on a low speed for 5 minutes, and then we're going to be upping our speed for another 10 minutes before we even add the butter in. So it's a very long process for brioche, but it's very worth it. It's very good. So our 5-minute timer just beat. We're going to turn this up one, and then we're going to mix it for another 10 minutes. I'll set a 10-minute timer. And then once that's done, we'll start adding in our butter, and we'll knead it for about another 20 minutes or so. Very long process, but very worth it. So our 10-minute timer just went off, so now we're going to start adding in our butter, and we're going to slowly add it in over the course of about a minute or two. So just a piece or two at a time. Once we've added our butter pieces in, we want to make sure that this mixes for the next minute or two just to kind of mix all that butter in there. And then once we have that done, we'll start timing for another 20 minutes. So most of the butter is mixed in now, so I'm going to set a 20-minute timer. And during that 20 minutes, I'm going to scrape down the sides of the bowl occasionally to keep it all mixed together. So it's been about 20 minutes and my dough is still pretty wet, so I'm going to add some extra flour into it until it firms up a little bit more. So I think I've got it to a pretty good consistency, so now that I've added more flour, I'm just going to knead it for a few more minutes, and then we'll do our window pane test. Get my bowl ready. Spray it with some butter spray so that the dough doesn't stick. Try our window pane test. Just about. I'm going to preheat our oven for the last minute that this is mixing. That way once it's ready to go, the oven will be warm. Our timer just went off, so I just turned the oven off. And now we're going to put our dough in our bowl and we're going to start rising it. turn it in on itself here. And we will let this rise for about 2 to 3 hours. So check it in about 2 and see where we're at. So it's been about 2 hours now and my dough has doubled in size. So we're going to punch it down and we're gonna get it over here. We're gonna weigh it and see what it weighs, and then we're gonna split it into thirds. All right, so now we're just gonna kind of roll them out here. Really buttery, really soft. Once we have them in a ball, we're going to just put them in a baking tray because I'm going to put them in the refrigerator for about 1.5 hours to let them chill. It's an optional step. You don't have to do that. If you want, you can skip this step and go on to the next one. But this just makes the top of the bread a bit smoother after it's baked. More cosmetic than anything. So now I'm going to cover them with plastic wrap. And then I'll put them in the fridge for about 1.5 hours. All right, so our brioche is just been pulled out of the fridge and it's ready to braid. So I'm gonna flour my work surface. And let's go grab one. Soften it up here. We're just going to roll them. And that should be about good. It's going to go in a loaf pan, so we don't need them too long. All right, and we have our 3 strands, so we're just going to braid them together now. Just kind of pinch them at the top, and then you just do a basic braid, just over and under. Get to the end, we'll just give them a pinch. We'll tuck it under. We'll flip this and we'll fix this end. Just give them a tuck. Right, now I've got my bread pan here and I've got it lined with parchment paper. So I'm just going to put my braid in. Now we're going to let this rise from anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. It's really just going to depend on how warm your kitchen is. So we will cover this with some saran wrap and then we'll get it rising, and as soon as it's ready to go, I will let you know. Go from there. All right, so I've got it covered and I'm just gonna put it up in the microwave this time. The oven was just used and it's warm. So we will let that rise in there, and as soon as it is risen, we will come back and we will start baking it. So it's been about 3 hours now and our bread has doubled in size. So we are gonna get started. So I've dropped my rack down to the 3rd lowest position in the oven, and I'm gonna start preheating it to 390 degrees. done an egg wash on my bread, and so we'll just wait for the oven to heat. All right, our oven is preheated, so we're going to put this in for 15 minutes, and then after that, we're going to take it out, we're going to cover it with tin foil, and then we're going to put it back in for another 20. So we will start with our 15. So our timer is beeping, so we're going to pull it out, and we're going to cover it with tin foil now. Oh, it smells so good. So here we are. Just get it covered. Okay, and we go back in for 20 minutes. So our bread is beeping. We'll take it out and see how it looks. That looks amazing. I want the internal temperature to be about 190 degrees. So we are not quite there yet, so we're going to go back in for another 5 minutes. Finally there. Smells so good. So now we have to let it cool for at least 45 minutes before we can cut into it. So since it is late, it's taken all day to make this bread. I won't be able to sample it tonight. However, I will have some first thing in the morning. I know it's going to be great. That is how you make a brioche bread, an all-day process in a tiny kitchen.